Hey everyone, Zandom here with another D&D 5th edition Basics. This time I'll be going with the Rogue class, one of my personal favorites. So let's just get right into it and explain what the Rogue's general purpose and role in a party would be. Rogues are generally jack of all trades and burst damage. They aren't as much utility in the form of skills as bards are, but they are a good bit better in combat. They have their sneak attacks, which means if they can position themselves well in the beginning of combat, they could potentially finish off one fairly weak opponent, or just take down isolated targets pretty easily. Rogues, of course, are also exceptional at stealth. So, their general role in the party is disarming traps, picking locks, and taking out extremely valuable targets by sneaking behind enemy lines, potentially taking out wizards, or assisting a fighter, because they can also backstab opponents who are otherwise engaged if they aren't focusing on the rogue and he can get up behind them or something. So, rogues can be quite fun to play as. They are fairly difficult to play as, seeing as though they're normally quite fragile, but they do have a lot of upsides, but they don't work that well if the party isn't that coordinated and you aren't doing battle tactics. I would also say that rogues perform a bit better if you're mostly using actual battle maps and not theater of the mind, but do whatever you want. I simply find rogues to be pretty fun, personally. Now, let's talk about the races. If you're going to be min-maxing a rogue, I would say you should probably go with a halfling, more specifically a lightfoot halfling, or a wood elf, or some other form of elf. Pretty much anything that can boost your dexterity. As a rogue, your dexterity is your most vital combat stat. After that, you're going to want to put it into more utility stats, say charisma, intelligence, and wisdom. Normally I put it as my second highest stat in wisdom, then charisma, then intelligence, mostly because if you have a wizard in the party, they'll pretty much cover everything for intelligence. But rogues are also pretty silver-tongued, you could say, because they're quite good at convincing people as well. So let's move on to this. Because I'm using a lightfoot halfling, I will be receiving a +2 to dexterity and a +1 to charisma. To determine the rest of the stats, I will be using the standard stat array of 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8, spreading them out wherever I wish for them to be. The 15 will go into dexterity, making that a 17. My 14 I will put into wisdom. My 13 I will put into charisma, boosting that up to a 14 as well. I think intelligence isn't the most important thing in the world, but I'll put that 12 in intelligence as well. 10 in constitution, and 8 in strength. Strength is not too important for a rogue, seeing as though you aren't able to use very many strength-based weapons in the first place, due to non-proficiency in them. You also, for the most part, can't get backstabs with most strength-based weapons, and they need to be finesse-based weapons like daggers, or rapiers, or potentially anything else. You can also get backstabs with sneak attacks with bows, which can mean, if you wanted, you could try and make an assassin sniper sort of fellow. Now, to determine the bonuses, you get a +3 in dexterity, a 0 bonus in constitution, -1 in strength, +1 in intelligence, and I'm quite certain 14 is a... yes, that is a +2. So a +2 in Wisdom, and a +2 in Charisma. This makes for a fairly well-rounded character. You're not going to be the tankiest person in the combat, but then again, if you're a rogue and you're just running straight at the enemies, you're doing it wrong. Let's see, as a halfling, the movement is 25 feet. This is one of the reasons why some people might prefer to play an elf. As a halfling, you can move one less space than some of the other races, but halflings have their bonuses as well. And let's move on to the racial bonuses. As a halfling, you are lucky. Let's see here. If you roll a 1 on an attack roll, ability check, saving throw, you can re-roll. This is an extremely powerful skill. It pretty much means you're almost never going to get critical failures. And that is one of the reasons why most people play Halfling. You can't roll 1s, you always re-roll them. This is an extremely powerful racial ability, so your DM might not count it. But yeah, this is an extremely good reason as why to play Halfling. Can't roll 1s. Your next is Brave. Have advantage on frightened saving throws. This is also good. Not that many things cause frightened, or the frightened status, but this can also be quite good. Don't really know when, because the only thing that I can really recall that gives frightened status is an Umber Hulk, if I remember correctly. Other than that, I can't think of any monsters that provide frightened. Maybe vampires or something like that. But at lower levels, this won't really come into play. If you're new to D&D, advantage means that you roll 2 die and pick the higher result. So that means you're twice as likely to succeed a saving throw against being frightened. Next is Halfling... Halfling Nimbleness. This just means you can move through a space with a creature larger than you. So, halflings are small, so humans and elves and everything like that are medium-sized, so you can move through the spaces your allies are in. So if you're in a tight corridor, you could just move right past them and past the enemy and then stab them in the back. That is quite good. It's another reason why halfling rogues are also quite good. Next on the racial bonuses is naturally stealthy. This means you can hide behind a creature larger than you. So this means in a crowd, you can hide in the crowd relatively easily. If you wanted to hide yourself behind an ally as to confuse an enemy, make them think that there's less of you than there actually is, you could hide behind one of your allies. Something like that. Other than that, can't really think of that many uses for this ability. It's good for hiding in a crowd or deceiving enemies, but other than that, not too much use out of naturally stealthy. Languages you will know as a halfling are common and halfling, of course. And now on to the rogue skills. As a part of being a rogue, you know Thieves can't as a language. Now, this is pretty much means that you can understand the language of thieves, which is extremely full of slang, etc., etc. It would be a form of common, more or less, but I don't know. You could use it as some way of talking to your party in code, or try to understand some sort of thieves or some things people are saying on the street. Now then, on to your hit points. As a rogue, you start off with 8 hit points plus your constitution modifier, which in this case is 0. So as a first level rogue, you will have 8 hit points. Not as bad as some of the classes, but certainly not the best. Now, 8 hit points just means you're going to go down in probably 2 hits. So don't go off and fight outright, because that'll probably get your character killed. Alright then. Your hit die as a rogue are d8s. Let's see here. Yeah, that's fine. Now, if you don't know what hit die are pretty much things that you can, or resources that you can expend during a short rest, which would be like a 15-minute rest in game. You have a certain number of them every long rest. A long rest, of course, is 8 hours. But the hit die recharge every long rest. You gain 1 hit die per class level every time you level up. So if you wanted to multi-class or something like that into a wizard rogue, you would have, for each level of wizard, a wizard hit die, which if I remember correctly is a d6, and for every rogue level you would have a d8. And you can expend any number of these in any way you choose during a short rest to recover hit points. So potentially you could restore all your hit points if you were knocked unconscious, or you could potentially only restore 1 hit point, which would be quite unfortunate. After that, let's move on to the rogue skills. Let's see here. As a rogue, you have expertise. What expertise does is you choose 2 skill proficiencies you have. Let's see here. You have and thieves, tools, proficiency, and your bonus is doubled. So this means instead of getting a +2 in those 2 skills, you get a +4. And you also get a +4 on whenever you're trying to use your thieves tools, which thieves tools are pretty much just lockpicks and those kinds of things. So, quite good. And as you level up, you receive more skills. You receive more skills that you can be an expert at. And this is really why I said the rogues have a lot of utility, because they can have a lot of guaranteed skills that they can perform, and I'll be picking my expertise skills later on. Next is sneak attack. Let's see here. Once a turn, you can hit with an extra 1d6 damage. You must have advantage on target. So this means that you can perform sneak attacks on targets that are distracted from you. Say you're at their backs and they don't know you're there. You get the advantage if they're knocked down. You can get advantage if you are flanking. So that means you have one ally that's distracting them and you are also behind them or at their side. So you're pretty much double teaming a target. And a few other ways that you can get advantage like that. But those are the most common ways to do it. You could perform as an action, try and just like leg sweep them and knock them off their feet. That wouldn't work every time, but if you roll well, hey, you could knock someone down and then perform a sneak attack or something on them. And after that, that is all a first level rogue gets. Now then, let's move on to skill proficiencies. First off, equipment proficiencies. Light armor. Simple weapons. Rapiers. Short swords. And crossbows. And long swords. As well as thieves' tools. So this is all the equipment that you can use. Light armor, certainly not the best armor. Simple weapons, most simple weapons are pretty bad. Just gonna throw it out there. Generally, as a thief or a rogue, you're gonna want to use a rapier. You're gonna want to use probably a short sword, maybe. Some rapiers deal the most damage out of the one-handed weapons. You can also just use throwing knives, stuff like that. Simple weapons, I might add, also include short bows. So having a short bow might be nice to perform sneak attacks with, or a hand crossbow. Depends on what you want to do. Hand crossbows don't have as much range as a short bow, but they, if I remember correctly, they deal the same amount of damage. Now let's move on to the proper skills and the saving throws. Start off with, you have proficiency in intelligence and dexterity saving throws. This means you get a +2 to those, so that becomes a plus, instead of a +3, that's a +5. Instead of a +2, that is a +4 in intelligence saves. So that means that you are less likely to get hit by any sort of explosion or anything of the like, because those are normally dex saving throws, and you are less likely to get mind controlled or anything like that, because intelligence can be those types of saving throws. For these other ones, they are the same as the ability modifier. On to that. You can choose 4 of the following skills to be proficient in: acrobatics, athletics, deception, insight, intimidation, investigation, perception, performance, persuasion, sleight of hand, and stealth. So you have a wide variety of skills you can choose from, but first let's pick the background and get the skills from that. I've already pre-picked it and decided to go with Charlatan. As a Charlatan, you are already proficient in deception and sleight of hand. So from there, I get to pick 4 more off of the the rogue chart. So I believe I will pick acrobatics, probably athletics, and I get to pick 2 more. Probably insight is always good, and I get to pick 1 more. So why not? Stealth might be good. I think I'll just go with stealth. Alternatively, you could have gone with persuasion, but deception can also be used in place of persuasion in a lot of situations. You could deceive someone to convince them of something, etc., etc. Now for all of these skills, I get to pick 2, which I have a double proficiency bonus in. So I think I will choose that in Deception. So that means my +2, which would normally make it a +4, becomes a +6. So Deception will be extremely effective on this character. In addition, I will also pick on Survival, or Stealth, sorry. And that instead of being a +3 and gaining plus to +5 because of the bonus from Proficiency, that will actually become a +7. And for these other ones, you simply add your modifier +2. So that would be +4, and that would be +5, and that would be +1. Athletics are pretty much running, jumping across things, so as a rogue, because of low strength, being proficient in athletics helps to mitigate that a lot. Athletics is also the only stat that is influenced by strength, so being proficient in that can mitigate that pretty effectively. Now that we're done on the skills front, let's move on to equipment. Now as a rogue, you can choose to start off with a rapier or a short sword. I'll be choosing a rapier, because rapiers are pretty much just better short swords. They deal a d8 instead of a d6. They both deal piercing damage. Rapiers are also a bit more expensive if you ever have to sell them, or if you ever have to sell your weapon, something like that. Next, you can choose a short bow in 20 arrows, or a short sword. Of course, I will pick a short bow and 20 arrows. This short bow is pretty effective at just sneak attacking opponents. If they don't know where you are, say you're hiding in a bush or something, just get your short bow out, start shooting at enemies, and since they have no idea where you are for perhaps a turn or two, you get advantage on those attacks and get to sneak attack. So that can be pretty good. Next is a Burglars Pack, a Dungeoneers Pack, or an Explorers Pack. Now, when you want to compare these packs, hold on, let me pull this up in my book real quick. These packs are on page 151. The Burglars Pack contains 16 gold, backpack, 1,000 ball bearings. Now these ball bearings, you can pretty much use these to toss them on the ground, potentially make people slip. That's the only real use I've ever gotten out of ball bearings, but they can be quite hilarious at some point, making an enemy slip. You get some string and a bell. You can use that to set up a alarm system, more or less, if you don't have the spell Alarm. So it can pretty much alert you if someone's trying to break into your camp or something, or you can set it up in like a doorway or something in case you want to know if someone's getting into the room as you're trying to steal something out of it. It also contains some candles, a crowbar, a hammer, 10 pythons, which are things that you pretty much drive into a wall to assist you in climbing. That's not something that everyone would know, so thought I would add that. You have a hooded lantern, some oil, or 2 flasks of oil, some rations, a tinderbox, and a water skin. Now, the oil, alternatively to being used in your lantern, you could also use it to just huck it at an enemy and try and set them on fire. So, that's that. The Dungeoneers Pack contains pretty much the same stuff, but instead of candles it contains torches. Doesn't have any of the ball bearings or string. Contains a bit less gold. The Explorers Pack contains just as well almost the exact same stuff except a bedroll. Doesn't have a few other things, and it has a mess kit, which isn't that important. So I'll be going with the Burglars Pack. Because I just listed everything off, I'll just put Burglars Pack. And in addition, you also have leather, armor, 2 daggers, and thieves' tools. So, you have everything a rogue could ever need right now, but we also get some bonus stuff for being a charlatan. In addition to that, as a charlatan, you have proficiency with disguise kits, as well as a forgery kit. These can be pretty useful just for, well, really trying to make yourself look like someone else, potentially forging a document from a lord or something that can get you out of some sticky situations, all that sort of stuff. So, bonus equipment you get as a charlatan is a set of fine clothes, a disguise kit, and this is pretty much just a makeup kit, things like that. You could use it to potentially add some features like a scar to yourself, something like that. You get a tools of a con of your choice. Let's see here. I'll just put 10 colored water vials. And this is what my guy sells as potions. But it's just colored water. He used some sort of dye. Weighted dice. Now, weighted dice can be used to cheat in order to make you some money at a tavern. Just don't be too obvious about it. Really? Otherwise, your character may find that they are thrown out of taverns constantly and marked as a thief. Your DM might not like it, but you could use this as a form of income. You also get a deck of marked cards. You can use this to cheat in card games. This character is a rogue and not a very nice person. He is not above cheating. You also get, well, you could get the marked cards or a signet ring of an imaginary duke. I'm going to go with the marked cards. This guy is going to be a thief who just steals things from commoners in a tavern by cheating them out of their money in games of chance. You also get an additional 15 gold, which adds on to the 16 gold you got in the Burglars Pack, which brings you up to a starting total of 31 gold pieces. I'll leave just the personality traits, ideals, etc., up to you to decide. This is just a baseline for making a character here. Other than that, that is pretty much everything you need to know about being a being a rogue. Oh yeah, also, initiative, that is your dexterity modifier, so that is a +3. And to finish it off, your armor class. If I remember correctly, let me look this up. Leather armor gives 11 plus your dexterity modifier, so that is 14 armor class. Not the best in the world. Certainly better than mages without mage armor, but with that type of armor class you're not really going to want to go and do any outright fighting. So, here you go. It's a rogue. Go have some fun and cheat some commoners out of their money. Normally a rogue would not be of a good alignment, so I'm just going to say this character will be chaotic, neutral. He does what he wants. He gets the money he wants. Not necessarily evil. He has a conscience, but yeah, he's not afraid to go and steal some money out of people's pockets. So, hope you enjoyed. Leave a like or a favorite if you enjoyed the video. If you think I could have done anything better, please offer suggestions in the comments section. I'm always looking to get better. Also, leave any suggestions in the comments if you want any specific classes or anything. And I hope you enjoyed. Have a nice day.